Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're good to kick off for the district council to take the lead, really.
Thanks, Carl. Sorry, didn't realise that you were giving us the go-ahead. Thank you. So I think, welcome, first of all, to this presentation. I think we're starting with a sort of statement from Robert, or the start of the presentation from Robert. So I hand over to Robert.
Thanks, Tony. Well, good evening to everybody, and thank you for coming to this presentation. I'm Robert Donald. I'm the portfolio holder for commercial development and wellbeing at the District Council, and I'm responsible politically for getting this project implemented for you in Harpenden. Tonight is the end of a process of consultation and design iteration, which has involved a lot of consultation with former charrette members, with district councillors, with yourselves, with MenCap from the social housing point of view, with the design review panel, with Historic England, and the local planning authority, of course. Viability has been an issue for this housing project from the beginning. As you are well aware, we have to make a certain amount of money to put towards the new leisure and cultural centre in Rothamsted. That was 5.5 million that we were looking at to provide towards that scheme. In fact, that's gone up, the need for that, slightly. But because of what the local authority have said about the size of this scheme, we don't think that we're going to be able to get that 5.5. It looks more likely it'll be at 5 million. It's not your problem, but I'm just saying that has been an issue from our side. And it is something that we've had to bear in mind and still bear in mind, because it's on the back of, it's back to back, literally, physically, with the opening of the cultural and leisure centres, and is financially tied up with it very closely. We're now ready, after all the consultation we've done, to go to a planning application, except that we have some irreconcilable issues which have been put to us in the course of the consultation between what we discern to be your wishes, both from the town council point of view and as in your Harpenden neighbourhood plan, and with what the design review panel and the planning department at the council, district council, say to us. So in fact, we're not putting one scheme to you this evening, we're going to put 2 schemes to you. And we do want to actually find out from you which you feel to be the right one to take forward. The areas of difference between what we think is what you would like to see happen and with what the planners are saying to us are over 2 or 3, 4 different issues. First of all, parking provision. We know that you would like parking there. The planners are saying it doesn't matter much, and a minimal standard on parking is all that they would require. Commercial stroke restaurant, I know is important to you and in the neighbourhood plan. Planners are saying it's not important. The nature of the building as a transitional building from the common to the town and the way it leads into the town, there's a difference of opinion between what we've heard you say and what the planners have said. And the need for a vibrant frontage, which you have stressed as being very important. I don't think the planners feel is so important. And finally, there are some different views from what we've heard from you and what we've heard from the planners and the design review panel about the massing and the height of some of the buildings. So at the end of this evening, it would be really useful to us as a team to know from you which of the 2 schemes that Tim's going to present in a moment is the one that you would prefer us to put forward as a planning application now. And if you were able, not tonight, but on a subsequent occasion, to take an actual decision and pass a motion and send a letter in support of one of those applications, we would be enormously grateful. It would help us. We can live with either. So it's not a question of one is totally financially disastrous. We can live with either, but we think one is actually what you would really like and the other is what the planners are saying we should do. So that just gives you a context to the presentation this evening, which I hope you find helpful, and obviously we can talk about it after Tim has done his presentation. I think it's over to Tim.
Yes, great. Hello everyone. My name's Tim Paul. I'm from Micro Architects, and we've been working with St Albans on this process. So I will hopefully share my screen, and hopefully everyone can see what's in front here. Let's go. I mean, Robert has kind of very succinctly summarised what's happened since we last met you back in May in terms of various consultations, meetings with planning team, updates to the design, and sort of all this extensive viability testing. So what we're going to show you this evening then is an update of the design that incorporates the various feedback we've had through these consultations. And then we're going to show you a version or a variation of that design, which removes the underground car parking and removes the ground floor commercial floor space. And this is in response to the comments we've had back from the planners and the design review panel. And as Robert mentions, both schemes variations have been viability tested and deemed to be the best fit for the site and work. So I'm going to try and keep this to 10 minutes, so we've got plenty of time afterwards to discuss the issues. So very first, what we're seeing on screen then is a comparison between the scheme that we presented previously in May on the left-hand side here, and the updated design, which is on the right-hand side here. And just to pick up on the key differences between the two schemes, we have reduced the total number of dwellings from 35 down to 28. So there's a reduction here, but we have increased the proportion of two-bedroom dwellings within the development. And this is in response to the sort of general desire or feeling that there was a need for more downsizer size homes as part of the development. So there's more two beds. We're still providing car parking in this update as part of the underground car park, and that is provided at one space per home. So 28 car parking spaces in total. Crucially, in terms of the arrangement of the buildings on the site, we have moved the previous pedestrian route that was on the southern boundary here, and we have moved it into the centre of the site. And this has a number of kind of benefits in terms of the arrangement and appearance of the buildings on the site. It helps to break up the mass of the development. So now we have three very distinct blocks, two blocks here, one facing Iden Grove, one South Down Road, and a linear block here. It creates activity within the heart of the development, providing much clearer, more legible routes and access to the fronts of properties. But it also adds visual and physical permeability through the site, so that you have views through to the common. Another key aspect that came through the consultation was the former single-story projection at the front of the site here. That has now been pushed back into the building so that it is consistent as part of a singular building, still providing commercial space at ground floor. That also then has the added benefit of improving and enlarging the public space to the front of the site, which came through in consultation. The height of the building has reduced further as well relative to number 2 South Down Road, so it is now 2 stories compared with the previous 3 stories. And there's generally been development in terms of the roofscape and roof design, so that it is more in keeping with the character of the local area. So these are same side-by-side comparison between the sort of site plan arrangement, previous scheme, a sort of conjoined block here with a smaller block here. The introduction of the route through the middle of the site has pulled those blocks apart and helped to reduce the overall massing, creating a direct route through the site, legible access to the dwellings and servicing, and a much improved public space to the front of the site. And then a comparable view from the previous design to the updated design, looking back across Harpenden Common with number 2 Southdown Road here, Harpenden Hall on the right-hand side. So generally, the update to the design has allowed us to reduce the overall height of the building, dropping down even further at Southdown Road, and introducing the route, pulling the blocks apart, creates gaps which now help to break down the overall mass of the development. And here is the summary of that scheme. So the updated scheme is providing 28 units, 28 dwellings, achieving approximately a 40-60 split in terms of affordable market sale. And discussions are ongoing with MENCAP with regards to the affordable element of the scheme. The commercial space is provided at 350 square meters. That's located down here at ground floor, which fronts out onto that space. As I mentioned, car parking within a basement car park, hidden from view, accessed to the rear here from Arden Grove as the previous scheme. And this is the kind of summary of the viability issues that we've been wrestling with as a team, and the figure that Robert mentioned here, approximately 5 million in terms of the return to support the development of the cultural centre. So this scheme, the scheme was taken forward to the local planning authority and received comments, which again Robert alluded to at the beginning, whereby their general view, I think, here was that they considered this site to be part of the common rather than the town centre, and as such, the design, the massing, the scale, and also the use on the site should reflect that, and as such be a predominantly residential use. They also, because of this sort of understanding of this site as part of the common, they also queried the suitability of this as a gateway location, which I think is one of the key things that's defined in the Harpenden neighbourhood plan, and queried whether it was a suitable location for commercial use. So that's the kind of context to their kind of view on the site, but their overarching kind of impression of the scheme that was presented, that there was too much bulk and mass to the front of the site, and how that particularly impacted on the setting of the listed building. So to sort of mitigate that, what has been suggested is that we look at a scheme which removes the car parking, removes the commercial space at ground floor, and then pushes the bulk and mass of the development towards the rear of the site, towards Arden Grove. And that is the variation that looks like. So I'll just quickly flip between the two. So the mass pushes back towards the site. So the outline of the with car parking scheme is here in white. So removing the car parking allows the development to sit down lower in the site, which allows us to get an additional story onto this building here. And that is required to maintain the overall viability of the scheme. The height of the building as it addresses Southdown Road has reduced. You can see it's come down here. But I think crucially, it's the size and bulk and massing of Block B, which is more immediately adjacent to Harpenden Hall, that has reduced in size as a result of removing the commercial space and removing the car park. It means that that block can shrink right down, and it obviously then has the benefit of enlarging the public space. So again, a summary of what that provides. It's providing 30 units in total, so an increase of 2 additional units, and that is for viability purposes. Whilst it may seem strange that removing the car parking should release some cost, but there is an impact on values of homes as a result of not providing a car parking space for every property. Car parking is provided in small quantity. There are 6 number spaces to the rear here at Arden Grove. As I say, no commercial space in this version, 6 spaces there. And the viability and the numbers look approximately the same with this version. So with car parking and without car parking, the return is broadly the same. But I think this scheme then is primarily to address those concerns from the local authority about the bulk and mass. So we're just going to take you through the comparison between those 2 versions of the updated scheme with from views around the site. So looking back across Harpenden Common, this is the scheme with car parking and with commercial space, and then the scheme without car parking and without the commercial space. So if I flip between the 2, the bulk and mass of Block B pushes back into the site, so it goes back, it's smaller. There is a reduction in the height on the building here, but there's a slight increase in the height on the building behind, and that is again for the viability reasons. So just flicking between the 2, you can see the mass pushes to the back of the site. And then similarly, looking across from Leighton Road towards the development, this is the building there, Harpenden Hall on the right, the new public route, which gets that visibility through. So this is the scheme with car parking and commercial active frontage along the ground floor. And then the scheme without car parking and without commercial. So this would revert to residential at ground floor here. And you can see the marginal increase in height on the building behind as you go up. So that is a comparison between the two schemes. One on the left here with car parking and commercial space, and then the one on the right without the underground car park and without the commercial space, as a summary. So apologies, a very quick update on the design, but we wanted to kind of share both with you and obviously start to hear your views on it. Robert, I don't know if you want to add any more at this stage.
I think we've said enough to get discussion going, really. Carl may want to take over again now. Sorry, Carl.
Hiya. Did you want to continue screen sharing, or?
I can stop and I can come back to it if there are specific queries on anything. So perhaps I can stop sharing.
Yeah, I'm just conscious that whoever's going to kind of chair the next question and answer session needs to probably see as many people as possible. So yeah, I think as it's district meeting, does someone want to?
Oh, I can do it. I can do it. That's fine. No problem. But I can't see the hands up function because I'm not used to Zoom, so that's one of the problems I've got. So it's going to be a bit of a struggle, but I can see everybody. So if someone wants to put their hand up, I'm certainly happy to then take that forward. Okay, I think Alan, I think you've got your hand up, so certainly welcome your question.
Tony, thank you very much indeed. It's more of a comment, I suppose, than a question. I'm very disappointed with the attitude of the local authority, considering that this is a Harpenden development, and I thought it should be accented to the priorities of Harpenden itself. I'm concerned, therefore, that in taking away the commercial aspect of the development goes against the principles that were heavily discussed in the charrette, where it was deemed that, no, this is not part of the common, this is actually part of the town, and incorporating commercial development, particularly in the charrette on the Arden Grove elevation, integrated the development to the existing commercial properties on that road. So I can't quickly turn that into a question, but certainly I'd like to offer that comment. Thank you.
I think that's a helpful comment, and I just probably want to clarify. So when we're talking about the comments made, they were the local planning authority comments. So is there a separation between what the planning authority have said to us and what we might believe as commercial and development, and what you might give us as advice? But we take on board your comment is noted. Okay, I'm doing my best to spot who would like to ask a question.
I think we've got Alan Jackson, I think.
Alan Jackson, thank you. Thank you, Carl. I can't see the hands up, sorry.
That's all right, I'll cover that then.
One issue that we were talking about back in May was that the view of the development from the Arden Grove aspect should not look like the back of a building. It should be designed to look attractive from that perspective also. Now, all the pictures we've been shown this evening show the building from somebody standing to the west of the building. So what can you say about the appearance of the building from where Bar Rosita is, basically? There was a feeling that the original design, which was very unimaginative in that area, had been created in that way to be compatible with the adjacent building, which is the old sorting office, which is not a very inspiring building. And my comment was, well, thank goodness it's not designed to be compatible with those dreadful 60s buildings on the other side of Arden Grove. But it is important that it shouldn't look like the back of a building from that aspect.
Yeah.
Tim, would you like to take that?
Yeah, certainly. I completely agree. There isn't a back and a front to this this development. There were two fronts, and Arden Grove needs to be treated in the same way. And I think what's important is that this development, although it's really important that we break the mass down of the development and we have individual buildings, but it still needs to read consistently as one thing. So there would be a very common appearance to each of the blocks, and particularly the block on Arden Grove has the same sort of feel and language and materiality as the other buildings, and needs to have a very sensitive position on Arden Grove. And I would also say that the addition of, or the moving of this public route into the middle of the site helps to provide more sort of animation, more activation onto Arden Grove around the base of the building on that side as well. We haven't shown imagery of that side for today, just for sort of brevity, and but we completely agree that frontage is equally important.
I think we've got Councillor Cousins, got his hand up.
Thank you, Carl. I just had a question about, I can see Mike is here from Jarvis. I don't know whether he will be able to comment, but it's not that I really love car parks or parking spaces, but it does occur to me that if I were a Harpenden downsizer, it's quite likely, you've got a drive full of cars and you might be going down from 4 to 1 or something. I'm not sure, does it affect the commercial viability of having no, an expensive 2-bedroom flat with no car parking? Because I don't think I would buy a flat without car parking.
So I could probably take an answer to that. So certainly from our perspective, from a viability point of view, we have advice that number one, the return on the investment, or the price that we can sell for, is 7% less, and the likelihood is that it will take a longer period of time for the units to be sold. So it definitely makes it less viable not having a car parking space on that type of property.
And I think Mike Peters, did you put your hand up to answer there as well, or have you done that one?
Yeah, I'd share that view. I mean, the cost of that underground car park cannot be underestimated. I mean, that is millions of pounds there straight away. But taking Paul's point, if we were developing the site, we wouldn't do it without a car park. So I would go for the higher values and the underground parking just because of the nature of the beast. But there may be a compromise, which is the nicest possible way if you're trying to create affordable living. You may not necessarily offer a parking space to an affordable apartment, where to make it affordable, you've got to bring the price point right down anyway. So I think there might even be a halfway house, but that's no doubt something that Tim's looked at already.
I think we've got Councillor Turnbull and then Angela, I think.
Thank you, Carl. Just checking I was not on mute. My problem is access and servicing requirements, particularly looking at if there's an underground car park, then that can be used in some ways to give access and service into the apartments. If there's no parking, there appears to be difficulty in really having easy access or servicing facilities for most of the apartments, from what I can see looking at the plan. And I just said that's a bad selling point.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the servicing arrangements wouldn't change with either of those designs we've shown. The servicing is all done from street level. There was no need to go into the basement car park to service. The bins and bikes and access to the properties are all from Arden Grove side. So there would be a small lay-by on the Arden Grove side, and obviously that introduction of that route through the middle of the site allows for ease of access for residents to take refuse to centralised bin store, which can then all be taken, and that's the benefit here, that you have a centralised area that then can be serviced directly off Arden Grove.
So I think we've got Angela next, and then Councillor DeCourt.
Hi, I'm just reiterating as well around the car parking. My view, particularly from Harpenden and Mencap, and also if these are downsizing units, then you're going to have people with a higher level of potential mobility problems. And I think it's perhaps storing up problems for people who actually can't manage without their own transport or being able to walk to a local car park. I just think that needs to be considered really in terms of who the population in these flats are going to be. So that's just my main issue, is around disabled parking or those for older people. So it may not need as many as 28 parking spaces, but I think there's going to be a need for some.
I think we've got Councillor DeCourt was next, I think.
I've got a query about the risk to the taxpayer on the two schemes. Obviously, the economic value was presented as 1 point is extremely similar. I just want to understand when and to what extent the risk of this development transfers to the developer from the taxpayer.
So the development is a profit-making development. So clearly, if values on the market housing drop to a level below what we've spent, then at that point we will have a negative position, and taxpayers would be a taxpayer's situation. But it's highly, I would imagine, almost impossible for that to end up being the scenario that we're in. What we're doing is we're using borrowing to pay for the development of the site, and then at the point at which we sell, we then pay back that borrowing and then pay the money towards the Harpenden Leisure and Culture.
Sorry, just to come back on that, I meant in terms of the risk that the two schemes have a different housing development profile, in that one is all about housing and one includes value from some commercial space. And I would imagine in the current business situation, the valuation on the commercial space is much more volatile than it is for the housing.
I mean, that was actually, I mean, you've hit on one of our key questions, really, because clearly the local planning authority have told us that they don't see this as having commercial space. We're trying to follow the guidance that was in the neighbourhood plan. Certainly the information that's been given to us was around needing to give some commercial space. And so from our perspective, we'd like to understand whether that, from a point of view of what the people of Harpenden feel, whether they feel that that's still a need, so the commercial space is still a need on that site, so that we can understand whether we should be moving away from that commercial space to a fully residential scheme. Even if it has ground floor car parking, we've still got that option available to us. So that was one of our key questions this evening, really. There is obviously at the moment a risk from the commercial element of the scheme. In terms of the scheme itself, if we were to sell all of the properties and not let the commercial space, then the scheme would still be in a profitable position.
Thank you.
What it wouldn't do is, sorry, yeah, to caveat that, what it wouldn't do is pay back the amount of borrowing that we've had on the Leisure and Cultural Centre, and that's the risk.
I think I saw Sue, and then Mike Peters. I think you put your hand up. I don't know whether that's still up or not. Yeah. So Sue, then Mike Peters.
Thank you. I'm Sue Cumming. I live at number 2 Southdown Road, so right next door to the new development. I suppose my concern is a personal one, really. At the moment, we are able to park outside our house on the driveway, you know, the pathway through. Am I going to lose my parking? Where am I going to park? Is there consideration given to that? I don't know.
No, you won't lose your parking.
Oh, grand.
Yeah, it doesn't affect.
It might affect the people who live in the sort of the first apartment, I was thinking. But from looking at the plan, it looked as though I might actually end up parking in front of their windows, which wouldn't be very nice to them either. But
no, there's a separation. There's a sort of garden space and garden wall that would separate from that parking space. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we've got Mike Peters now.
2 very quick questions for Paul, and then a general one for Tony. Paul, in the 2 schemes, where the surface car parking is shown at the back, the 6 parking spaces, in the other scheme, it appears to be green space. Is it, in fact, green space if it's not 6 parking bays, or is the green just a notional entrance to the underground car park?
Yeah, I think you're seeing the top of the top of the entrance to the car park. There's also a bike store to the back there as well. So there's a green roof to the bike store, and then you have the entrance to the car park.
Okay, thank you. And where you've moved the access way down the centre of the scheme to the rear of the apartments, there seems to be a very narrow strip. Is that potentially outdoor space for the apartments?
Is it helpful if I quickly jump to a plan? I think I understand the question. Are you referring to this strip?
Correct.
Yes. So they become small sort of courtyard gardens for the townhouse properties. So they have their own private courtyard gardens to the back.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, I hope it's not considered a vested question. Tony, are you actually Harpenden or the local authority going to build this scheme out and sell it, or are they selling it to a developer?
The intention is for us to build the scheme out and then sell the properties. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Of course, we will be doing a tender exercise for a construction company.
I don't think I'm seeing any other hands from what I can see.
Well,
oh, Alan Jackson.
I don't think anyone would forgive me if I didn't come back to the parking issue. We know that parking in Harpenden is one of the most intransigent issues. There's virtually nothing on the horizon that encourages us to believe that the problem is going to be, inverted commas, solved. We had, I think, 28 parking places for people using the public hall. Obviously, it's different use, but those places go. We are creating residences, and it's not just the people who live in the houses that have the vehicles, it's people who come to the houses or the flats, the dwellings, and so on. And there will be a lot of cars wanting to interact with this development and no parking for them. Now, my question is, has this been thought through? Where are we pushing the parking problem to? Because those cars that want to visit are going to go somewhere. Where is it anticipated that they are going to go? So this is not a question for within the development. This is essentially a town development question, because we've got a real car parking problem, especially in that part of Harpenden.
So I think you raise a very good point in terms of the parking for the site and for the wider development, the wider Harpenden car parking issues. I mean, I'm not able to really talk too much about the wider Harpenden car parking issues. It's not something that I can speak about, given it's not my department. But certainly from the site scenario, it was. It took us by surprise that the LPA suggested that it could be a no car parking scheme. We didn't think it was necessarily the right thought process, and we wanted to test that out in terms of making sure that we thought we were thinking the right thing. It sounds like to me we are, in terms of it should have car parking. And we will endeavour to get as much car parking space into the scheme as we can for the number of units that we're building.
I think we've got Councillor Cowley.
Yeah, can I just drill into what exactly the commercial space onto the commons, the main sort of anticipated businesses we're going to be targeting that at? Because the green space in front of it, I'm aware we previously talked about using for events and things like that. But if we're targeting that at things like cafes or restaurants, I'd imagine they'd want outside tables. And I'm just wondering if there could be a potential conflict, or if that space is larger than it appeared on the diagram.
I think I'll take it, and then I'll probably hand over to Tim to sort of explain the size of the space. I think the first point is that we wouldn't want to suggest that it's going to be a restaurant space, shop space, or office space. We actually want it to be flexible space, because we feel that if we are going to put a commercial use into the site, that over a period of time, as we've seen, things change and situations change. The current suggestions that are coming through, and we've had two people approach us about the site, are for sort of home office incubator type space, where people don't want to stay at home and be in the office, but they'd like to go to somewhere where they could have a period of time away from home. Sort of a bit similar to the Harpenden Collective that is already in Harpenden.
Yeah.
Talk through the space size, because I think it's quite important.
Yeah. I'll just get back to the imagery, if I may, on this. Just go to the here. So with the alterations to the design, we pushed the building back and obviously lost that projection. So we get a much enlarged sort of landscape space to the front of the building. In terms of rough order of size, it's approximately 15, possibly up to 18 meters deep here. And I guess getting a kind of point of reference, if people can sort of imagine the existing low-level wall in front of the Harpenden public halls, where it's sort of back at that sort of line. So it's a good depth of space. What we've suggested here that there is an element of sort of enclosure to that space, but it has a green space, soft landscape space, and then a more hard landscape space, which the commercial floor space could open out onto. So this is to be developed as we go through, but I think we feel it is large enough to accommodate some use from the commercial, but also still provide an element of sort of landscaped space for a variety of uses, be they events as well.
I think we should explore that, explain that a little bit further as well, in that it very much, this is just at stage 2 design, so very early stage design. We certainly would like to have a little bit of help around how we should be designing that front space, what it should actually be, whether it should be mainly greenery or whether it should actually be hard landscaping. And we certainly would welcome people's thoughts on what they feel it should be, because we've had very different opinions as to what might go on in that space. And we want to design something that's fit for purpose for what might end up being there.
Brilliant. I think I saw Councillor Butterworth, and if there's none after that, I think we might need to draw to your kind of conclusion, Tony, and any wrap-up points before we move to our council meeting at 5:30.
Okay.
Councillor Butterworth, I think.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. Job well done, I think, and certainly visually, in terms of the scale and the height, I think the second version is better. So thank you for putting that forward. Personally, I'm not too fussed about the commercial development, given what's happening in the high streets generally. I'm not sure whether we need another Pizza Express, Costa or whatever, but I do think it would be a mistake not to have a generous provision of parking spaces. You can get away with a development without parking spaces in central London, possibly even in central St Albans, if it were targeted at relatively young people who may not have cars yet anyway. But if we're serious about this being the downsized market, I think we need the car parking spaces. And for those people who might be, for example, MENCAP or other people with difficulties, it's not only the individual who may not have a car, it's that person's visitors. And Harpenden a place where everyone would expect, and I think deserves to have reasonable car parking provision. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Don, oh, sorry. I think, Carl, have we got enough time? I think Alan's just waved his hand, so.
Yeah, we have got about a minute and we need to move to a formal meeting, so, okay.
Thank you, Carl. Very, very quickly. What happened to the aspiration that the so-called commercial area at the front of the development should actually provide a social facility, a meeting point that will replace the meeting point that the public halls might itself have provided in its present form, which is going to be lost if the whole lot is transferred across to the new leisure centre? That's my question.
So what we've tried to do is to provide a space out at the front of the development, but it is difficult to provide it and see that there will be an ability to use it without the commercial element that tags into it to kind of make it a viable space. We're certainly grappling with that, and we're trying to understand how that will work if it's a fully residential area. So we are grappling with that as a challenge. It is one of our challenges. Councillor Donald, do you want to wrap up? Because I think they have to go to their formal meeting in less than...
Yes, just, thank you, Tony. Thank everybody for their contributions. I think we've got a fairly clear steer about the parking, but it would be really helpful if you could take a more formal decision to give us something to work on that we can with the planners then, and when we bring a planning application now based on that of providing car parking. And if you could comment further about the commercial element, whether you would find that still useful as in your original neighbourhood plan, or it's now expendable because of COVID and the current economic situation. I think those two things would be really helpful to us. And whether it is part of the town or more the common, and the gateway element that I know is important to you. So if you were able to take a formal decision about that and pass it on to us, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for organising this as well. We do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. So I think if town councillors can just stay on this link, and then we will look to convene in a few minutes' time.